Imagine you're given $1 million tomorrow. Life-changing money. Enough to quit your job, travel the world, buy that dream house. You're ecstatic. You're floating on cloud nine. You've never been happier in your entire life. Now imagine that same day, you discover your neighbor just inherited $10 million. What happens to your happiness? If you're like 99% of humans on this planet, that $1 million, that life-changing, dream-fulfilling fortune, suddenly feels like pocket change. Your joy evaporates. Your gratitude turns to envy. Your blessing becomes a burden. You just witnessed the most powerful happiness destroyer in human history. It's not poverty that makes people miserable. Some of the happiest cultures on earth have very little money. It's not failure. Failure often leads to growth and resilience. It's not even tragedy. Humans have an extraordinary ability to find meaning in suffering. No, the fastest way to kill your happiness is something far more subtle, far more insidious, and far more universal than any of these obvious culprits. The quickest way to be unhappy is to compare your happiness with someone else's happiness. And here's the terrifying part. You're doing it right now while watching this video, while living your life, every single day, hundreds of times a day, without even realizing it. Your brain is running a constant background program, comparing your life to everyone around you, your success to their success, your relationships to their relationships, your achievements to their achievements, your happiness to their happiness. And this program is designed to make you lose. But what if I told you this entire comparison game is based on a lie? What if the very foundation of how we measure happiness is not just flawed, but actively rigged against you? What if everyone you think is winning at life is actually just as trapped in this comparison prison as you are? Today, we're going to expose the psychology behind humanity's greatest happiness thief. We're going to understand why your brain is evolutionarily wired to make you miserable through comparison. And most importantly, we're going to discover how to opt out of this rigged game entirely. Because here's what nobody wants to tell you. The comparison game has no winners. Only prisoners who think they're playing. The trophy that turned to ash. Let me tell you about David Chun, a software engineer from San Francisco who thought he had cracked the code to happiness. David was what you'd call a life optimizer. He had spreadsheets for everything. His career goals, his fitness metrics, his financial milestones, even his relationship timeline. He approached happiness like an engineering problem to be solved. And by every measurable standard, David was crushing it. At 28, he was making $180,000 a year at a tech startup. He had abs. He owned a Tesla. He lived in a sleek downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. David's Instagram looked like a lifestyle magazine. Hiking photos from Yosemite. Dinner shots from Michelin-starred restaurants. Weekend trips to wine country with his beautiful girlfriend, Sarah. But David had a secret ritual. Every Sunday night, he would pull up LinkedIn and systematically scroll through his college classmates' profiles. Not to connect or congratulate, to compete. He had mentally turned his entire graduating class into a video game leaderboard. And he was determined to reach the top. There was Marcus, who had started his own company. David would Google Marcus's company valuation and compare it to his own stock options. There was Jennifer, who had gotten promoted to VP at Goldman Sachs. David would research her salary range and stack it against his own compensation. Most weeks, David came out ahead. He'd close his laptop feeling satisfied, validated, slightly superior. Then came the Sunday that changed everything. David opened LinkedIn to find that his college roommate, Tommy, quiet, unambitious Tommy who used to eat ramen for every meal, had just sold his app to Google for $50 million. $50 million. David stared at the screen for 20 minutes. He read the article 3 times. He calculated Tommy's net worth, his new financial freedom, his suddenly unlimited options. And something broke inside David. His $180,000 salary felt like minimum wage. His Tesla felt like a toy car. His apartment felt like a shoebox. His girlfriend's "congrats, babe" felt hollow and patronizing. In one moment, David's entire life, objectively successful, objectively enviable, transformed into a monument of failure. But here's where the story gets interesting. David spiraled for 3 weeks. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus at work. He found himself researching real estate prices in Tommy's neighborhood, calculating how long it would take him to afford a similar lifestyle. Then Sarah sat him down. "David," she said, 3 weeks ago, you were the happiest I'd ever seen you. You love your job. You were excited about our future. You felt grateful for what we had built together. Tommy's success didn't change any of that. Your job is still the same. I'm still the same. Your life is still the same. The only thing that changed was a number in your head." David realized something profound. He had been outsourcing his happiness to a comparison algorithm that was designed to keep him perpetually dissatisfied. That night, David deleted LinkedIn from his phone. He unfollowed everyone on Instagram except close friends and family. He threw away his spreadsheets tracking other people's achievements. 6 months later, David told me, "I discovered that happiness isn't a leaderboard. It's not a competition. It's not something you win by having more than others. It's something you lose by constantly looking at what others have." David's story isn't unusual. It's the story of millions of people who turn their lives into a performance measured against an audience that doesn't even care. But why do we do this to ourselves? Why does the human brain seem determined to steal our own happiness through comparison? The psychology, why your brain is your happiness enemy. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you alive. For millions of years, human survival depended on one critical skill: accurately assessing where you stood in the social hierarchy. The humans who were good at this survived. The humans who weren't didn't. If your tribal neighbor had better tools, better shelter, or higher status, paying attention to that difference could mean the difference between life and death. Social comparison wasn't just useful, it was essential. But evolution gave you a Stone Age brain that's now living in a digital age world. That same survival mechanism that helped your ancestors navigate tribes of 50 people is now trying to process the highlight reels of 50,000 people on social media. Your brain is attempting to compete with everyone on planet Earth simultaneously. Dr. Leon Festinger discovered this in 1954 with his groundbreaking social comparison theory. Festinger found that humans have an innate drive to evaluate themselves, and when we can't measure objectively, we measure relatively against other people. But here's the crucial part. We don't compare randomly. Psychologists have identified that we engage in upward social comparison. We compare ourselves specifically to people who appear to be doing better than us. When was the last time you felt better about your life by comparing it to someone homeless? Probably never, because your brain doesn't naturally make downward comparisons for happiness. Your brain is running a program that only shows you people who make you feel inadequate. And social media has weaponized this evolutionary glitch. Dr. Tim Kaiser's research at Knox College revealed that people who focus on external validation, wealth, image, status, the things we most commonly compare, report significantly higher levels of anxiety and depression, regardless of how much they actually achieve. Meanwhile, Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky's studies at UC Riverside found that comparison-oriented people experience what she calls hedonic adaptation. No matter how much they achieve, their happiness levels return to baseline because there's always someone doing better. You're running on a hedonic treadmill where the finish line moves away from you every time you get close. But here's where ancient wisdom meets modern science. 2,500 years ago, the Buddha identified the root of human suffering as tanha, literally translated as thirst. Not thirst for water, but thirst for things to be different than they are. The constant craving for your situation to be better, different, more like someone else's. The Stoic philosophers of Rome came to the same conclusion. Epictetus taught that happiness comes not from external circumstances, but from our judgments about those circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. Ancient philosophers understood something modern psychology has confirmed. Happiness is an inside job that gets sabotaged by outside comparisons. Recent neuroscience research has shown that when we engage in social comparison, our brains activate the same regions associated with physical pain. Literally, When you see someone with a better life than yours, your brain experiences it as a wound. But here's what's fascinating. The same research shows that when we practice gratitude for our own experience while comparison, our brains release the same neurochemicals associated with winning the lottery. The capacity for happiness is already in your brain. Comparison is just blocking access to it. So if we know comparison makes us miserable, and if we know internal happiness is more sustainable, why do we keep playing this game? The contrast: two worlds, two ways of living. Let me show you the difference between two ways of experiencing the exact same life. World 1, the comparison life. You wake up and immediately reach for your phone. Before you even register how you feel, you're scrolling through Instagram stories. Your friend posted about their morning workout at 5 a.m. You feel lazy. A colleague shared their vacation photos from Bali. Your upcoming weekend suddenly feels boring. At work, you hear about a promotion someone else got. Your own job, which felt fine yesterday, now feels stagnant. At lunch, you overhear a conversation about someone's new relationship. Your own dating life feels pathetic by comparison. In the evening, you watch a YouTube video about a 25-year-old millionaire entrepreneur. You calculate how behind you are in the wealth game. Before bed, you see LinkedIn posts about people getting accepted to graduate school, starting families, buying homes. You achieve something, a small victory, a moment of growth. But instead of savoring it, you immediately research whether others have achieved more. Your accomplishments become data points in an endless spreadsheet where you're always behind, always catching up, always not enough. Your happiness becomes a stock price that goes up and down based on everyone else's portfolio. Now, let me show you the same life lived differently. World 2, the internal life. You wake up and pause. You notice how you feel. Tired? Grateful? Excited about something? You don't need external validation to understand your internal weather. At work, a colleague get promoted. Instead of making it about you, you genuinely celebrate their success. Their win doesn't make you a loser. It makes you someone who can appreciate other people's joy without diminishing your own. During lunch, instead of consuming other people's curated experiences, you're present with your own. You taste your food. You notice the texture, temperature, flavors. Simple pleasure that costs nothing and requires no comparison. When you achieve something, you pause. You let it be enough, at least for this moment, without immediately searching for the next mountain to climb. You measure your progress against your own past, not against everyone else's present. You compete with who you were yesterday, not with who everyone else is today. Your happiness becomes an internal weather system that you can influence, regardless of external conditions. Here's what's remarkable. People living the internal life often achieve more than people living comparison life. Why? Because they're not wasting mental energy on endless evaluation. They're not paralyzed by imposter syndrome. They're not constantly pivoting based on what everyone else is doing. They're playing their own game by their own rules, which makes them remarkably effective at winning. Dr. Sean Aker's research at Harvard found that happiness precedes success, not the other way around. When you stop chasing happiness through comparison and start cultivating it internally, you become more creative, more resilient, more focused, and ultimately more successful. But here's the question that changes everything. If the internal life is more effective and more satisfying, why don't more people choose it? The path: how to escape the comparison prison. The answer is both simple and heartbreaking. Most people don't know they have a choice. We've been conditioned to believe that comparison is natural, inevitable, even necessary for growth. We've been sold a lie that competition drives excellence, that keeping up with others keeps us sharp, that social pressure creates progress. But you can opt out. Here's how. Step 1. Identify your comparison triggers. For 1 week, become a detective of your own dissatisfaction. Every time you feel inadequate, behind, or less than, write down what triggered that feeling. Was it social media? A conversation? A news article? An advertisement? A casual comment from a friend? You'll be shocked to discover that most of your unhappiness isn't caused by your actual life. It's caused by comparing your life to curated versions of other people's lives. David from our story discovered that 90% of his dissatisfaction came from three sources: LinkedIn, Instagram, and conversations with one particular friend who constantly bragged about his achievements. Step 2. Define success in your own language. Here's a revolutionary question. If you lived on a desert island with no internet, no social media, and no knowledge of what anyone else was achieving, how would you know if your life was successful? Write down your answer. Be specific. Is it the feeling of helping someone in need? The satisfaction of learning something new? The joy of deep relationships? The peace of creative expression? The pride of overcoming a personal challenge? Real success metrics are internal, personal, and impossible to Instagram. Step 3. Practice path gratitude. Every journey is unique. Every timeline is different. Comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20 isn't just unfair. It's meaningless. Start a path gratitude practice. Every day, write down one thing about your specific journey that you're grateful for. Maybe it's a skill you developed during a difficult period. Maybe it's a relationship that formed through shared struggle. Maybe it's wisdom you gained from a failure. Your path isn't a mistake. It's not a detour. It's uniquely, perfectly yours. Step 4. Master the art of genuine celebration. Here's an advanced move. Learn to celebrate other people's success without making it about you at all. When someone achieves something remarkable, practice thinking, "That's beautiful. Good for them. I'm genuinely happy they're experiencing joy. Full stop. No, but what about me? No, when will it be my turn?" No comparison. Just pure appreciation for someone else's happiness. This is harder than it sounds, but it's incredibly liberating. When other people's success stops threatening you, the world becomes infinitely more abundant. Step 5. Create comparison-free sacred spaces. Designate specific times and spaces where comparison is simply not allowed. Maybe it's the first hour after you wake up. Maybe it's during meals. Maybe it's Sunday afternoons. During these times, you don't check social media. You don't discuss achievements. You don't evaluate your progress against anyone else's. These become sanctuaries where your natural happiness can emerge without interference. Step 6. Understand that your happiness serves others. The biggest myth about internal happiness is that it's selfish or lazy, that removing competition will make you complacent. This is exactly backwards. When you're secure in your own happiness, you become more generous. You stop hoarding opportunities because you're not operating from scarcity. You stop putting others down because their success doesn't threaten you. A person who doesn't need to win at others' expense becomes a gift to everyone around them. The truth. What happens when you stop playing the wrong game? Let me tell you what happened to David 5 years after he deleted LinkedIn. He never went back to the comparison game. He still has social media accounts, but he uses them intentionally to stay connected with people he actually cares about, not to monitor everyone's achievements. He stopped tracking other people's progress and started tracking his own growth, not compared to others, but compared to who he was yesterday. Here's what's beautiful. David is now more successful by every external measure. He started his own company. He married Sarah. They bought a house, not because someone else had one, but because they wanted the experience of creating a home together. But external success isn't what transformed his life. What transformed his life was discovering that happiness was already there, waiting underneath all the comparison and competition and external validation. He told me recently, "I spent years thinking happiness was something I had to earn, achieve, or win from others. I didn't realize it was something I had to stop blocking." This is the truth they don't want you to know. You already have access to profound happiness. You're just looking for it in everyone else's life instead of your own. Your happiness isn't in someone else's house, relationship, bank account, or achievements. Your happiness is in your ability to be fully present with your own experience, grateful for your own journey, and content with your own unique path. This doesn't mean you stop growing or achieving. It means you start growing from abundance rather than scarcity, from gratitude rather than envy, from self-compassion rather than self-judgment. When you stop comparing your happiness to others, something magical happens. You start noticing all the happiness that was already there. The satisfaction of work you enjoy, the pleasure of genuine connection, The simple joy of being alive in this moment, in this body, with this breath. You realize that the race you thought you were losing was a race that never existed. You realize that everyone else is too busy comparing themselves to others to judge you as harshly as you feared. You realize that happiness isn't a competition with winners and losers. It's an experience available to everyone, including you. The quickest way to be unhappy is to compare your happiness with someone else's happiness. But the quickest way to reclaim your happiness? Stop playing a game where everyone loses and start living a life where you get to win. Your happiness doesn't need anyone else's permission. It doesn't need external validation. It doesn't need to be better than anyone else's. It just needs to be yours. And it's been waiting for you all along. The question isn't whether you're happy enough compared to others. The question is, are you ready to discover how happy you actually are when you stop looking everywhere else? That discovery begins now.